Hey everyone, PushingUpRoses here, and today I'm bringing you a mini review on a single episode of a classic kids program. Normally I would do a more comprehensive video on the history of a show, but to be quite frank, I'm tired, and this shit takes too long, so I thought I'd try this out to give you guys some extra content. As you can see by the spooky imagery I've inserted here, I will be discussing an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? But not just any episode. Ghastly Grinner? Nope. The Hatching? Nope. Whatever the fuck this is? Nope. I'll be talking about the least scary episode. Granted, I'm sure there are quite a number of duds out there. They can't all be equal in quality, but this one stood out to me as particularly bland. I've appointed myself as an authority on spook levels, and despite the title of this story, The Tale of the Frozen Ghost, it does not exactly inspire anything spine-chilling. In fact, it left me feeling kinda cold. I know I shouldn't get too pedantic, but after watching this, I couldn't let it go. Ha! You like that? I got more. I got millions of them. I won't be going too in-depth on the Are You Afraid of the Dark series because I will be covering it in a future History of video, but if you're not familiar with it, then here's a few things of note. The pilot episode premiered in Canada on YTV in 1990, and was later picked up on Nickelodeon where it aired from 1992 to 1996. Every episode starts with this simple but brilliant introduction, and features a group of kids that call themselves the Midnight Society. They meet up in the woods, throw some shit into a campfire, and tell ghost stories. A lot of people compare this series to Goosebumps, as a lot of these young adult horror shows seem to hold hands in terms of plots and structure, but there always seems to be this argument over which series was better. I have no comment. I think it's more comparable to The Twilight Zone. It's just a little more toned down for the younger darklings of the world. The line submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society is actually a direct nod to The Twilight Zone.
Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society? Call this story Tale of the Frozen Ghost.
You can tell this was shot in the 90s based purely on these terrible outfits. I see Kiki is sporting overalls, which is honestly the most horrifying thing in this entire episode. I always wanted to wear them when I was young because they were the hotness for a while, but then I thought, what if I have to pee? What if I have to pee badly and I can't get my overalls off in time because a strap gets stuck? And that's my hot take on overalls. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. In this episode, a girl named Kristen shows up to the meeting bundled in a jacket even though the kids are sweaty from a heat wave. She assures them that after they hear her story, they will be chilled to the bone. She throws some sand into the fire, and we're presented with the title of the tale, which looks like someone had a little too much fun with the warp text tool in Photoshop. I remember this specific episode being a very big deal to me because it guest starred Melissa Joan Hart, whose claim to fame at the time was her role on Clarissa Explains It All. It doesn't seem like a big deal now, but to a kid, this was huge. A child celebrity guest starring on another amazing show. These are the things kids care about when they're young. Now we're all grumpy and yell at clouds on social media all day. Oh, if only I could get excited about Melissa Joan Hart again, but she's making it kinda difficult. In this story, Melissa Joan Hart plays Daphne, a babysitter for a young, spoiled little boy, and they're both being sent to his aunt's house so his parents can go on vacation.
It all began when Charles Pemberton Schilling, of the Third, was sent with his babysitter to spend a weekend with his aunts, so his parents could go to a wedding out of town.
Okay, I'm already confused by this. Why does he need to go to his aunt's house? Isn't that the point of a babysitter, so you don't have to send your kid to someone else? And why can't he go alone if his aunts are there? I do appreciate the tropey rich kid name Charles Pemberton Schilling III, though. Everyone is bundled up because it's one of the coldest winters in years. Upon arriving at the house, it looks abandoned because it's dark and quiet, the only movement being this chair that rocks by itself. Ooh. Fortunately, Charles's aunts, Greta and Maylene, are home. The power had gone out, which is why they're carrying candles around. The pair is thrilled to meet Charles, as this is somehow the first time they've seen each other since he was a baby. I seriously thought this woman was about to light her hair on fire. While dragging this huge steamer trunk up the stairs, Maylene makes a quip about trying to be good hosts, but Greta mishears and scolds her for mentioning ghosts.
Greta dear, I only said hosts, not ghosts.
Ghosts? Ghosts?
While getting ready to settle in for the night, Charles hears some strange wailing from outside, but it's hard to make out the exact words. I'm mold? Later on, during his nightly bath, Oh, sorry, it's just the kid. During his bath, he hears more ghostly despairing, and on top of this, the light bulb is moving. After that, we finally get some exposition. We learn from Greta and Maylene that their stove, which they try to use for heat when the power goes out, never works correctly. And they're also very low on money and don't want to ask Charles's parents for help. According to their story, Charles's great-grandfather accidentally hired a bank robber to work on their farm, and that didn't sit well with the rest of the family. Greta says that the bank robber was caught, but Maylene says he escaped and was never found, told in a very theatrical way, I might add.
He hired a common criminal to work on the farm.
Maylene, Uncle Charlie didn't know he was a criminal when he hired him.
Yes, but Father thought there was something odd about him from the start.
This is a big mood. We next see a very, very blatant Evil Dead-inspired edit. I was quite amused when I saw this. Nothing really happens with it, no evil has entered the house, but it does ruin a perfectly good pie, which is halfway to evil. Greta mentions that they would have the power fixed, but their maintenance man left.
I thought it was because of the ghost.
Ghost?
Would you like some more macaroni and cheese? There's lots.
You think there's a ghost here? Who is it, the bank robber?
Ghost?
I don't think we should talk about such things.
But I'm not afraid of ghosts, and neither is Charles. Are you, Charles?
Don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it.
Ghosts?
While sleeping, Charles has a nightmare that features a reject Al Borland grabbing someone's jacket away from them. And finally, after a very dramatic reenactment of a Celine Dion music video,
There were nights when the wind was so cold.
Charlie finally sees the ghost, who is a glowing little boy. He chants, "I'm cold."
Ghosts?
The next morning, Charlie tells everyone what he saw. Daphne is skeptical, but his aunts corroborate his story, explaining that the ghost of the little boy does live on the property, but it's okay because he never comes into the house. They go on to say that the authorities found him behind a tool shed frozen to death. They have a brief moment of sadness before noticing the stove is out again and they are out of firewood. Daphne volunteers to go chop more and drags Charles along with her. "Tina, bring me the axe." This is probably a good time to mention that Daphne is needlessly mean to Charles for the duration of this episode, with her reasoning being that she's just really annoyed by his wussiness.
If it weren't for me, you'd be a total couch potato, sitting at home, playing a nice, safe video game in your nice, clean clothes.
What's wrong with clean clothes?
That is definitely the hottest take about clean clothes that I've ever heard. She takes her obviously misdirected anger out on him by smearing mud all over his shirt.
That's it. I'm telling my mom you did that. I'm telling my mom and dad.
Oh my god. Daphne thinks she hears something and goes to check it out, leaving poor filthed up Charles alone to despair about
Ghosts?
Suddenly, footprints in the mud. I'm slow. The ghost chases him around until Charles finds himself stuck in a shallow puddle of mud. After Charles collapses as a result of a 2-second struggle, he realizes that the frozen ghost is trying to tell him something. He finds an old jacket in a log and realizes that this is the boy from his dream and the one that his aunts told him about. Aww, all he needed was his jacket back. I'm warm. Charles finds a weird doohickey that fell out of the kid's jacket. He brings it back to his aunts and they identify it as the latch to the stovepipe. Welp, guess the bank robber wanted the jacket because his key to his riches was in it. Oh, of course. The kid wasn't saying I'm cold, he was saying I'm gold. My favorite part is that nobody is particularly excited about this. You're rich, ladies! Your financial woes are over! And the only reaction we get is Greta's facial expression that says, well then, how about that? They were more excited about the stovepipe key. The episode concludes in a similar fashion as the rest in the series, with the kids verbally celebrating the awesome story and Gary putting out the fire. As amusing as I find this tale, it really is one of the weaker ones from Are You Afraid of the Dark? Not necessarily when I was young, but as some of you may know, young me was terrified of everything, so I probably thought this was the most horrifying thing in the world, right next to that weird clock ride at Chuck E. Cheese. It's just, nothing really happens in this episode. It's a lot of build-up to a rather disappointing ending, and the ghost story is not as frightening as some of the other episodes. I would not say the story is convoluted or anything, but it does suffer from a lack of excitement. I was surprised at how few scary things actually happened. There are some legitimately disturbing Are You Afraid of the Dark tales, though. I definitely recommend The Tale of the 13th Floor, The Tale of the Super Specs, and The Tale of Midnight Madness. And don't get me wrong, they're not gonna have you up all night with the lights on or anything like that, but they are some of the more well-crafted episodes. Anyway, I still have fun rewatching Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's a staple of my childhood. The image of the self-lighting match over the logo in the intro is forever burned into my brain. I hope you also enjoyed this look back at the Tale of the Frozen Ghost. Please do share your favorite episodes with me so I can watch them and judge your taste in children's horror. For now, stay spooky. Hey everyone, thanks for watching this mini retro TV review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, obliterate that like button because it gives me a false sense of security. If you want to catch me on social media, check the description for links, and if you want to support the show, consider becoming one of my sexy patrons. As always, I'll see you in the next one.